Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak for about 10 minutes. I understand there may be other senators coming to the floor, and wanted to just express my concerns over a few issues that are really important to the people of Louisiana. I understand that the meeting with the President and the Republicans in the Senate, our friends, has just concluded. I'm hoping that there will be some positive steps forward from that meeting so that we can open this government, remove the threat of an economic collapse, and get to the bargaining table where we've been trying to get to literally for 6 months. We voted 21 times in the Senate to get to the negotiating table in the budget conference, which is the first starting point to agree on numbers and revenues and spending limits. And then, of course, as an appropriator, I would know this as chair of the Appropriations Committee, the next step in regular order is for each individual committee to then negotiate with our Republican counterparts about how we allocate the money given to us through that budget process. None of that has been able to happen, Mr. President, none. Not because Democrats have been unwilling to go to the negotiating table, but because some friends on the other side have taken hostage innocents, federal employees, the economy generally, and demanded things that are way beyond their ability to use their political leverage. And so instead of using it correctly, they've held innocents hostage. And it's very, very troubling and I think very wrong, and hopefully we're going to find a way forward. But I wanted to spend my time this afternoon talking about a couple of things that the people I'm hearing about from Louisiana. Like, could you all get back to work? Because we have some serious problems that need to be solved. And one of them, Mr. President, maybe your state is being affected by this because you have a coastal area as we do, is fixing this very broken flood insurance system. It's referred to at home in our state as Biggert Waters, named after the two members of Congress that led this, quote, reform effort. Maxine Waters has subsequently completely disassociated herself with the legislation and said that, you know, it wasn't the right thing to do. She has made several public statements. She has urged herself as the leader in the House with Republicans and Democrats to get this fixed. I can tell you, the people of Louisiana, this is our number one problem and challenge right now, because the federal government a year and a half ago passed a law that was supposed to cure something, but the cure is worse than the disease. The cure was worse than the disease. The disease is that we had a flood insurance program that had spent more money than it had taken in. And yes, premiums were probably too low to sustain the program, but it was giving people at least some option and hope when they had a flood to get some of their equity in their home protected and recovered. This bill came along, never debated on the Senate floor, stuck in a conference committee report, and now it's being implemented. And Mr. President, it is a disaster. We have 400,000 flood insurance policies in Louisiana. Texas has 700,000. Florida has over 2 million. Pennsylvania has over 75,000. Virginia probably has close to 40 to 50,000. I don't have all of my list in front of me. And the problem is that the law that passed had a stated one goal: to make the program sustainable, but it left out the second or the equally important aspect: to make it affordable. So you can sustain a program all day long, but if nobody can afford to be in it, A, how long will it sustain itself? Not long at all. And B, you're hurting the people that you're trying to help the most. So a group of us have been working on fixing this now for quite some time. And these new regulations went into effect October 1st. So we're now 11 or 12 days, I forget the date, but we're somewhere past the 1st of October. These new rates have gone in. Some people are seeing rates quadrupling or tenfold, going up from, $300 a year to $3,000 a year. Or in some cases, we've heard of $1,500 to 30,000. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making this up. This is all in the record. So we have a way to fix it. And the good news I wanted to say on the floor today is that we had 24 senators, Republicans and Democrats, come together this week and send a dear colleague letter to our leadership, to the Republican leadership and to the House leadership, to say that we're very close to a compromise that will do two things. It will give us time to get the affordability study that was supposed to be done actually done, allow FEMA potentially with some oversight from Congress to set rates that would keep the program functioning but not jeopardize people's equity in their home. It would, of course, remove the automatic trigger provision that has been very detrimental in the law, which basically says your rates can stay low, but the minute you sell your house or the minute you put your house for sale, whatever grandfathered rate you had is gone, and you don't go up 25% a year, you go up to where you should be, and sometimes that's moving from $1,000 a year to $30,000 a year. It makes your house worthless, and that's what's happening to thousands of people. They have lost equity in their home. It's one of many problems this Congress has to face. We can't fix any of them if we can't get back to work. And if we can't get the officials back to work that are working at FEMA that have been laid off. So one point I want to make today, and if I exceed my time, I don't see anyone else, I'll ask for a few extra minutes. One point I want to make today is let's find a way forward to negotiate, and I hope part of the negotiation could potentially be a fix to Biggert Waters. I want to thank Senator Merkley from Oregon, Senator Menendez from New Jersey, Senator Wicker from Mississippi, Senator Vitter from Louisiana. Senator Isaacson has been giving us some good input, et cetera. I want to thank the realtors and the bankers because they realized we had made a mistake, that the law that we passed was not a good one. Sometimes that happens, and so we've got to fix it, maybe, we don't have to fix maybe the whole part of it, but we're working on some pieces that must be amended so that it accomplishes the goal of having a program that the taxpayers do not have to pick up a big tab every year, but that allows real estate markets to function, people to be able to retain equity in their home and to pay their fair share, and also encourage smart growth and development. And very importantly also, which is part of the problem with Biggert Waters, the old bill, the bill we're trying to fix, didn't even recognize levees. I don't know if you have a lot of levees, Mr. President, in Virginia, but we have to have them in Louisiana because we are below sea level, and we've been that way for 300 years. I mean, we moved there below sea level. We had to be there to create the Port of New Orleans. Thomas Jefferson leveraged the whole federal treasury to buy us for, I think, 3 cents an acre, if I remember correctly. The bulk of 19 states. It was the greatest real estate purchase in the history of our country. Alaska may argue, but we think the Louisiana Territory is equally as valuable, if not more, and our state's proud to carry that name. People understand the history of this. So why would Thomas Jefferson leverage the whole, treasury of the United States to buy something that wasn't worthwhile? Of course it's worthwhile. It was worthwhile then, it is worthwhile now. And people live there because we run the biggest port system in the world, and we need to continue to live there with all the industries, oil and gas, fisheries, et cetera. So this bill this Biggert Waters bill undermines our region's ability to function. And we produce 17% of the GDP for the country. So this is not a small parochial issue. So the southern states, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, et cetera, but it also affects interior states. You saw what happened in Colorado. You've seen what's happened in the East Coast states with New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, et cetera. So let's get to the negotiating table. Let's work together as we know that we can. And let's put on the top of that agenda a potential fix for Biggert Waters. And again, I thank my colleagues for working so cordially together, even in this difficult time. Let me move to another subject for a minute and put into the record in the event that my colleagues, do I have to ask for an additional 3 minutes?
Without objection.
Thank you. let me put into the record, in the event that my colleagues did not, a letter that I received, and I think all the members received a copy of a letter that went to Senator Reid, Senator McConnell, Speaker Boehner, and Representative Pelosi from the Governors Association that came yesterday. Governor Mary Phelan and Governor John Hickenlooper signed the letter on behalf of all the governors, and it says, the nation's governors urge Congress and the administration to quickly reopen the federal government. The fiscal health of states is inextricably linked to the fiscal stability of the federal government. And while state economies have improved, a failure by our national government to secure a solution to the current budget issue undermines our state's recovery and endangers the U.S. economy. It goes on to say that states have so far, now 10 days or so into this shutdown, managed to avoid closing or suspending most programs and services by using carryover funds, but they say in some cases by using states' spending to fill in missing federal dollars. However, states are not in a position to be the bank for the federal government. And as a former governor, of course, you understand this. I was a former treasurer. I most certainly understand that the budget of Louisiana is about almost 70% federal funding. So when the federal government cuts that funding off, it starts to really affect the way states and the 300-plus cities in my state operate, and our private sector partners that work with us to provide state-level and community services, and nonprofits like Catholic Charities, who's running some of our low-income housing, our justice programs for in some of our neighborhoods and communities. So this shutdown, it's just bad. It's bad all around. It should not have happened, and we need to get this government open and operating, not only to help our states and their economic, recovery plans, to start focusing on fixing things that we need to fix, like Biggert Waters, and repealing that old insurance reform bill and find a better way forward. And I might also want to mention just two other things quickly. What is also happening in our state today, I've got news this morning, is that permitting in the Gulf of Mexico for offshore oil and gas drilling, Mr. President, is now shut down. Right at the time when America is about to overtake Russia as the largest domestic producer of gas and oil, right when we're about to take first place, the Republicans' Tea Party has shut the government down and shut down permitting in the Gulf. We've been fighting ever since the Deepwater Horizon to get that back up and going. Now we find it's shut down again. The people I represent can't take another shutdown of permitting. We have levees to build. We have a big problem in our river parishes, we call them, along Lake Pontchartrain. We've got Morganza to the Gulf, which is a very important levee project for Houma, one of the centers for oil and gas production that helps not just the people of Houma in Terrebonne Parish, but our whole region and the whole country, because that's sort of like the little Houston, if you will. Houma is like a little Houston. We don't have all of the corporate structures there, but we have all of the know-how and goods and services and the providers and the boats and the planes and the ships and the helicopters. They might have the gleaming office towers in Houston, but we have a lot of the hard workers right there in Houma. The levee that protects them and their homes is now basically the plans for it shut down along with this Tea Party shutdown. It is time to open our government, get back to work, solve real problems, and negotiate in good faith without taking innocents hostage. And too many innocents, whether it's children with cancer, whether it's business people that have put everything on the line for their business and at no fault of their own now have no customers coming in the front door, can't pay their note, and the banks aren't going to wait until we get our act together. So I thank you, Mr. President, wanted to mention this, and in 1 minute, if I could just take 1 more minute to speak on behalf of a people that don't have a senator here, and that is the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is technically not a part of the federal government. They're not an agency of the federal government. They're not a department of the federal government. They are the district where the federal government resides, and they, contrary to popular belief, raise most of their money through their own tax revenue generated, about 75% local. 25% of the budget of the District of Columbia, which is about 750,000 people, a pretty big city as cities go, come from the people that live here. And they have been caught up as if they were an agency of the federal government. And on their behalf, let me just argue to my colleagues or suggest that that's a group of innocents, a city. You know, Baltimore's budget is not shut down. Richmond's budget is not shut down. The New Orleans budget is not shut down. Chicago's budget is not shut down. New York's budget is not shut down. San Francisco's budget is not shut down. But DC government is shut down because of this threat. They've gotten caught up. They should be let go. And we can then negotiate on all other things. So I think the president understands this. I know that Majority Leader Reid understands this. I'm hoping that Minority Leader Mitch McConnell will give his support so that this can be done in a bipartisan way, recognizing this is the nation's capital, not asking for them for any special preference, just allowing them to use their own money and operate their own city while we try to figure out how to get the rest of the government open and operating. And I hope that we can do that today. We've been working across the lines. I want to thank the Congresswoman Eleanor Norton Holmes for her leadership on this. But, you know, they don't have senators, so a few of us have to stand up and speak for the people of the district. And I'm happy to try to do that on occasion when I, of course, believe strongly in what they're asking for. So I thank the president, and I yield the floor.